oh, by the way, I watched 2 of your podcasts. Well, Alexio forwarded me a brief and I saw this and that. They're like, so you're the man. I go, I guess. Like, cool. And so all the content that I just did, they got to know me. I don't have to sell myself. I'm like, do you have any questions about me? They're like, no, it's like all there.
This is Alexio. I'm starting a podcast. Don't have a name yet, but I'm going to be naming it soon. And today, the purpose of this first podcast is to pick a professional in the industry's brain on how they produce the level of content that they do and how they've produced podcasts like this one. So today we're interviewing Kenny Simpson and Monsi, his content professional at his office. Kenny is a lender, does 2 to 4 unit properties and single family homes, residential loans in San Diego here and all over the West Coast, and crushes it. And he puts out a lot of really educational content. Want to introduce you guys. Thanks for coming on the show, Kenny.
You have like really good lighting there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're getting better because we moved our stuff around. So we're just like,
Yeah. Well, today I want to talk to you just about the level of content that you put out. Obviously, you can see in your video that you have a good setup and you guys have kind of mastered the art of making a lot of content and over time improving the quality, providing value. I'm sure that you've tried a lot of different techniques. So I'm hoping that today you can share some of the secrets of your content creation, your strategy, and some of the ways that you were able to be the most efficient at producing it and growing your brand. Yeah, I guess the first question is just how did you get started making content?
Yeah. So the quick story is I never did. If we've been in the real estate business for 19 years, up till probably even just a couple years ago, if I told you I did marketing, it was embarrassing. So we didn't do marketing. We were just all referral of mouth. And we're pretty lazy about outbound reach or referral. When I say referral, like we weren't like calling people or age. It was just like we worked hard, it came in. Mm-hmm. And so we had our property management company and all that stuff, and we sold it. So when we sold it, I said, hey, look, we need to take the time that we put into this and we need to build our brand. And I don't even know what the hell that meant at the time. So Crystal, during that time, she goes, hey, have you ever heard of this guy named Gary Vee? And I was like, no, who's that? So obviously everybody knows who Gary Vee is. I consumed his content. 4 months later, I was in his office in New York for a 4D dive, and Gary Vee comes in, and hopefully I can cuss in this podcast because he likes to cuss. And so basically I got in there, and we're literally in a room, and there's 12 entrepreneurs in there, and Gary's sitting right here next to me for 3 hours, and his team's coming, rotating in, talking about all the different stuff they do. And I told him all the stuff we've done in real estate. So he's like, why are you here? I was like, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what you do, how this whole thing works. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, go back to San Diego and just give it all away. I go, what? He's like, just go back and fucking make content, give away. And I was like, okay. And somebody was like, well, aren't you worried about if you tell everybody what you do and your secrets, they're going to steal your things? And one of Gary's main guys that sits in the room, Gary always travels with like a crew of people. So if he goes in a room, it's not him. There's a guy taking notes, his videographer. So it's like there's like a posse. He said, dude, Gary's been giving away free for this long. How many people really stole it? Right? None. So when I came back, one of the guys in the room was a podcaster, Skylar, right, Monty? Skylar. And so that's when I ended up meeting Monty at the time. And, she didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't know. So basically we reached out to Skylar. He sent us this drop thing. Hey, this is all I got. We bought all the gear, set it up, and I started interviewing people. And that was the first thing. And then the second thing is I started just doing, crappy whiteboard videos or shooting videos. And I remember I would have like a suit jacket on and all this. And then I shot all this stuff. And Crystal's like, that is terrible. You're not going to get that out there. I go, okay, what am I supposed to do? She goes, you're not being yourself. You're not being authentic. So I'm sitting here shooting. And she's like, you're being fake. So one day she's like, why are you wearing that? That's not you. So I'm like, take it off. Just wear my Real Estate Hustle shirt. And one day I was just shooting content over here, and all of a sudden she walked by, she goes, that's you, you're being yourself. And so what I will say, first off, when you're shooting content, the number one problem is getting comfortable, being yourself, not being, oh, well, I think people are going to want me to act and be like this. No, they want you to be Alexio. They want you to be Kenny. They want you to be Monty. They don't want you to be, we're not a reporter.
Not a news
Kenny, we're live. Yeah. And so we're not acting here. So the sooner I got to be myself, and then I got to be more comfortable. And then now we're, thousands of videos later, many, many years later, hundreds of podcasts later, Many being in rooms with a lot of great, very smart content creators, entrepreneurs, people that build brands. Today, what do we focus on? We focus on, it went from no plan to now we pretty much have a very well diverse plan. And so that plan consists of video, it consists of email, it consists of content, it consists of Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, podcast. So that's what we do. So if you're in the real estate business like we are, and you're trying to build your brand and grow an audience, number one is what do you want to talk about, right? You don't have to have a podcast. I do, if you get my emails, I do. Now I came up with the brief. So I do the brief every week that goes with the rates. I do a monthly webinar. We do a podcast every week. I do tons of content, everything else. So then what I do is I test stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, started doing the brief. Everybody's like, dude, I love this weekly stuff. It's great every week. I'm like, shit, I'll do more. We didn't even have a name for it. Then I named it the brief. So one of the big things that nobody does in real estate, and I say nobody, is the biggest ROI is email. You talk to Ryan Serhan, who's I don't care if you like him or not, the biggest well-known real estate agent in the world, the most famous, the best branding guy. He makes most of his money off email.
Listing.
Yeah, right. He makes most of his money off of email, and nobody knows that. So, so I send emails. We do a blog. We do my brief and the rates, and then on Fridays we do some type of video or what's going on with the podcast. So I do 3 a week. And so when I maybe see Alexio or I see a client or people, they used to go, "Hey Kenny, how you doing?" Good. Now it's like, "Hey Kenny, it's weird seeing you." Why? Because I watch your video, I see this, I see that, like you're everywhere, right? And then on top of that, I was like, "Hey Monty, I feel like we're doing all the social and all this, great." And obviously it's still a perfection. Like today, I was getting ridiculed by Monty, which is good. You have to take honest feedback saying, "Kenny, your engagement's down, the way you're posting is not good." And I'll go into that in a minute, which Monty will probably, correct me. But before that, I was like, "Monty, we're doing all the social this, but we're not hitting the PR stuff. I want to get local. I want to get in publications. I want to get Business Insider." So we did hire a PR firm, definitely expensive. So we've had 6 articles in Business Insider, Wall Street Journal. I just literally, what was it, Monty? Monday, I was on CBS National News. I did a segment. They picked that up. They went all viral all over. So I've done live TV 3 or 4 times like this with Zoom. And so it's been great. Yeah, I sit here today and I sound comfortable and confident, but that took a while.
Yeah, I think it's just like really awkward at first. But I think that that what you said first about just being yourself makes it a lot easier. And especially when you're talking to people that you want to be talking to anyway, or like today, this podcast is really originating from a phone call I was going to have with you just to ask you about how you started, some of the secrets. And I was like, you know what, why don't we just make this the first one?
Yeah.
Get all that content, because 1, it'll be a fun way to start a podcast. And then 2, it'll be useful information I'm sure a lot of people need to hear who want to get into this space. And, one day end up on CBS national television, just like you.
Yeah.
Which is,
you got to start somewhere,
awesome.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I remember like at first you were saying, you know what, you were like, I'm just putting out quantity. And like you said, you had a bunch of stuff where you're wearing your sport coat and you're trying to be all professional. Did you always, over time, I'm sure the quality has improved. You've figured out little tips and tricks, but what do you recommend, like, as you're getting started? Do you want to always have the nice setup, or do you want to have like the easiest way of recording, like on an iPhone, and settle for, even if you're just walking down the street recording something, if it pops in your head? Like, what were your early processes to get started, and then how have they evolved to like today? Like, just to generate a certain amount of content per week.
Yeah, look, in the beginning, we bought that gear, right? But Monty and I if you go in our storage over here, whatever, there's tons of different, we spent thousands and thousands of dollars on mics and this and that, because you know what, you know how it works? By testing it, and you can return it back. So ultimately, I'll tell people, you can just half-ass it till you want to spend the money, or you can go out and go, you know what, I want to do this right. And how much money do I need to get started? Monty, you probably answer the question, but if you're going to start a podcast, between lighting and camera and the audio and all that, I would say if you can invest $5,000, I know people are like, that's ridiculous, but if you're willing to do it and you're passionate, if you invest $5,000, you'll get more of a quality. I mean, Tim Ferriss for a while, nobody knew this. He literally had a camera set on. Somebody went on Tim Ferriss's that I interviewed. They go, dude, I thought it was gonna be all sophisticated. I get there, the guy's like, and looks like he rolled out of bed, and he's like, basically, like we're in 2 chairs. We have this crappy mic set up and these cameras, and he just goes. And that guy has one of the most famous podcasts, right?
Yeah.
I have another friend, Jessie Lee. You probably don't know her. Monty does. Badass entrepreneur girl. She has a crazy successful podcast. She literally during the pandemic got on, right, Monty? I think she filmed herself on her iPhone just ranting, and she's had millions of views. She crushes it. There's no sophistication. Wow. She could do the damn thing she doesn't care. She just shoots it because she's like, you're not here to see what I look like or this. It's to get the quality. The quality is what I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. So I think it's what you're going for. But to answer your question, if what's holding you back is worried about lighting and this and that, it's very simple. Like you said, take your phone, go get a little cheap round light. You can clip your phone on the thing. You can hold it here, or you just put a light on and just start filming and recording. And it's simple as, hey, this is Kenny. And today it just start talking. And then what might happen. Yeah. And let's go through the things, because nobody wants to talk about this, but this is what people think. You're like, well, what are people going to say about me when I start posting? You know what they're going to say? They're going to go, hey, Alexio, you started a podcast? Yeah, you're posting more? Why is he doing that? Ha ha. I wonder if this is just a phase. And then it's like, oh, Alexio, wow, you're being real serious. You're being consistent about this. Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow, Alexio, you're wow, he's putting up some
kind
good
of authority
content
on these subjects now. Yeah.
And then you know what happens? Hey, Alexio, can I come by your office? Can you teach me how to do this shit? And that's what happens.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I went through the same phase, it's the same thing. Like people are like, what are you doing? Because I never posted. And I just went from never posting to like, we're going to post. And everybody's like, what the hell is going on here? I went from 0 to trying to do everything. So Monty might differ, but I'm not going to sit here and worry about if I'm going to get started to worry about how all fancy the stuff is. I'm going to more figure out, what am I trying to shoot here? Like, who's my avatar? What am I talking about real estate? Am I talking about multifamily? Am I talking about commercial? Am I talking about loans? And then also, am I going to talk about a bunch of subjects? But the fact is, if you're not going to be even consistent with it, you're going to have a problem, because I think 95% of podcasts do not make it past 10 episodes. Yeah. So just stop there and think about that. 95% of podcasts never make it past 10 episodes. And I know a guy that's in my building right now that went out, right, Monty, and spent $5,000 in equipment. We went on his podcast. He didn't even make it past 5. Yeah. It's because it's time, it's money, it's effort and energy. And on top of that, once you go through your immediate Rolodex, you got to start finding more people. And that's the problem. Yeah, and nobody takes you seriously. Once you get to like 100 episodes, you start getting serious. And once you get some big guests, you can leverage those. Like we can leverage now, instead of I have Grant, we can leverage it. Now we have, 30 good guests to leverage, and we have an audience and, stats and all this crap. Yeah. But that's the biggest thing. And Monty will tell you that is people like jump in, they get excited, but this is work and it's money and it's effort. And if you're not willing to do it or passionate, I would say then don't. Just maybe do a YouTube or do Instagram and just shoot videos about what you do.
Well, I think what I'm noticing on a lot of people's Instagrams is they're repurposing, like this content here that we're filming about podcast. It is a full podcast. It will probably be long form on YouTube, but it seems to me that, Monty or, people like her that are your editors can pull out bits of content from these longer form into bite-sized chunks that can then be repurposed for Instagram and then drive traffic to your YouTube, which then drive traffic to your website. And, overall they all work together to build clout and also just, grow your audience and share the truths. So I guess that leads me to my next question is how do you guys, because I know I've seen your Instagrams, you guys are producing a lot of short form stuff too with really cool editing that's captivating. Obviously everybody's got on Instagram has a little pea brain these days. If you don't do some crazy shit at the beginning of the video, they're going to scroll right to the next one. So I think that over time I've seen you guys evolve your content to something that's now increases the amount of views, keeps people's eyes glued to the screen so they actually hear what you have to say versus just scrolling to the next one. So what is your process now for producing that? I mean, are you editing these videos yourself? Are you
Hell no.
filming them with the intent of them being a Instagram video? Do you think of the hook and things like
Yeah.
that, or do you just start
Yeah.
talking?
Yes. Yes. So this is what I got criticized today is I was doing something, then I went away from it to test. And then like Monty's like, it's not working. So you need to go back. So what it is, it's the guys that are doing well, it's a hook. What's the hook? What's the problem? What's the solution? Or what's the hook? What's the tip? What's the hack? Problem. So there is an order. So you're right, is whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, right? People, you have like 3 seconds for people to keep watching for 10 seconds, right? And so the hook is what drives people to everything. That is what it is. So people that are really, take Graham Stephan on YouTube, massive following, look at his hooks. The real estate market is going to crash.
Yeah, it's almost like super exaggerated.
Oh, no.
Something to freak people out.
And then when he talks about it, he actually says, well, maybe it won't. And he's like, and it's funny, I heard him interviewed on Lewis Howes. He's like, I just wanted to listen to it because he's smart and he's in the game and he gets it. He goes, all my predictions are always wrong, but people still watch my content because the hook gets them. It's like the house is on fire. He's like, oh,
Well, I mean, like he brings, no matter whether his predictions are right or wrong, it's not always about the predictions. He talks about all of the market factors that are affecting the market, like digesting all of this news information and bringing it into a concise, cupcake for us to eat versus us having to find all the flour and everything to make it ourselves. So regardless of what he says it tastes like at the end of the day, at least we can, take all that information and make that decision for ourselves. And like you said, I think the hook is always something that's like, it draws people in, makes them watch the video. But then during the video, it's not nearly as crazy as the hook makes it out to be. But without it being crazy, people, what is it, fear sells, or the news is always exaggerating stories.
That
strictly is to get people.
The news sells BS because that's otherwise we wouldn't watch.
Exactly, yeah. But with that said, you're talking about the hook. You gave that formula, like hook, problem, solution. Where did you guys did you follow some seminars, or where did you find the resources to figure out what works and what doesn't work on the short form stuff?
Testing, number one. But yeah, I mean, we're obviously, because I've been to a lot of the masterminds in this and we networked hard. I mean, we have access to guys that have massive brands, right? It's funny, some of those guys are like starting a podcast and they come talk to us. You're like, why are you talking to me? Just because you have a massive brand doesn't mean you know how to develop a podcast, right? So just because so some of these guys are like, they suck on Instagram, but they crush it on YouTube. They crush it on YouTube. They crush it on Instagram, but they suck on YouTube. They crush it on a podcast, but their Instagram and YouTube, they could care less about, right? So you go to where people are doing it. And one of the guys for our industry that was doing well is Neil Dingra. We'll actually be seeing him tomorrow. He's got you probably see me with him. You'll see him this weekend, but he just started testing and he figured out this hook thing for the mortgage business. And now he's literally on stages in front of everybody. Wow. He's become a friend of ours and close. We have a lot of close people that we know. And so I'm mastering with these guys to learn more. So yeah, you just learn by following people that are growing and building and I got referred to him by a mutual friend of Monty and I, that Monty introduced me to. And he's like, you guys should meet. You'll be perfect. I never even reached out to the guy. We followed each other for a month. I was like, this guy's good. And then we got on a Zoom with Monty and it's supposed to be 15 minutes and turned into an hour. And we were talking about all this stuff. And now we're like friends and doing a lot of shit together, And so that's what it is get around people that are doing stuff. Yes, maybe you're going to have to go pay for a course for this but maybe try to find the course, the mastermind that has to do with your business. Like I'm not going to go to a doctor conference to learn how they should do hooks and problem solutions there. Cause I'm not a doctor,
Well, do you have I imagine that just the thinking of the hooks and what people want to hear and what's actually going to get attention, let alone creating the content or posting it, like just thinking about the subjects to talk about is probably, it's a job in its own. So what are you creating do you take let's just say your process here, like do you take one day at the beginning of each week or each month and then you say, okay, these are the things that I want to, let's think about some things that are going to get some views that people want to hear about. let's start with the hook and let's create like 10 topics, or do you just come in every single day and think about it, or you do it once a week? Like, what is your process in figuring it out?
So we have content days. We sit down, shoot videos.
Segmented into days then. And you
Yeah,
spend like a couple hours each day that you do.
Yeah. For example, we're shooting all the time because I'm shooting the brief. I'm shooting this, that, we're working on another project right now that we're going to launch Q2, but yeah, you're constantly shooting, but we'll shoot 10 in a row. I mean, yeah. And then, yeah, like, to be honest with you, I'm not lazy when it comes to shooting content and consistency, but I do get sometimes lazy when I have to say, oh, I have to do the hook and this and really sit down and focus. So I have to be better about that. But for example, we have realtors coming in here and we teach them how to shoot on video. And I'll give you an example right now. Let's say I'm going to shoot a video. Most people go like, here's the 5 things you should do when you buy a house. So you see other things I'm like talking to you. Well, what about the difference from that video to this? Here's the 5 things my client just did to save $20,000 on this house they purchased. See the difference?
Yeah.
It's like, instead of pointing at you, I'm telling a story of something I did, right? Okay. And that's why. So, and I don't even have a hook problem and solution in my mind right now, but it's just talking things. So instead of saying, here's the 3 things you should do, here's the 3 things my client just did to save, $100,000 off the last sales. Here's 5 things that my client just did that got them $100,000 more on when I sold their property. And because people want to hear what you've done. They want to hear what I've done, what you've done, and they want you to explain to them. They don't want to hear what you tell them they should do, because that they can't relate. They can't relate, but they can relate to.
Also, it's just not received as well when you're being told what to do versus like told what can happen, and then you get to ask for it yourself.
Yep.
I think that's a great point. I took some notes here. And then when it comes down to editing and processing the stuff, so like, for example, if you're filming something, you just flip on the camera, or you have Monty in the room, she's helping you turn everything on and stuff and make sure the lighting's right, your hair looks good. But then what do you do afterwards?
She doesn't do my hair. Yeah. She won't touch my hair. Yeah. She doesn't pick out my clothes. No. Yeah. She does some change this. I mean, I have coat jackets in here in case literally we have to shoot something or something. I keep stuff here.
But a lot of times you probably just do it on your own. Maybe you're the only one in the office. You have an idea and you want to.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Monty has been set up the cameras. We're trying to do that so we can learn more ourselves, here to do it, because honestly, like, I can sit here and do it. So it's just, again, taking the time to do it. So we are learning, and I've been shooting some stuff of my own, which is good. But the editing part, I do not do. Monty used to do. She does not do. Okay. Editing, posting, and that has now been outsourced to VAs.
Okay.
We are, between Monty and I, we have a lot of VAs right now, virtual assistants.
So do you mind sharing some of the secrets on like how you found your VAs, what typical cost is to edit maybe a short form video on Instagram, or if you have like, I guess, contracts with them for like an entire month? How do you set that up so that for the post processing? Because I'm sure that, like you say, guys start a podcast, they don't get past 10 episodes. I think that the post processing is something people don't think about, and it's like an entire job in itself. Luckily, I'm really into video and photography already, so I understand that it takes a lot of time, but even I don't want to do it. So if we're going to scale up, I need to hire someone, and if you can direct me in the right direction and give me some tidbits on what to expect in terms of costs, that would be awesome.
Well, I'll tell you one thing right now. Monty just started a business, so Monty's kind of going out on her own. So she'll be running our podcast. That's why we've been setting this up for a transition out. So Monty's going on her own. What Monty is now focusing and specializing in is podcasts. So Monty's been with us this whole time. We've all, like I said, we started from like, what the hell are we doing, to what's lighting in this, and Monty, we just all figured it out. Monty figured out most of it. We were the face of it and doing the, this thing up here, and Monty's behind the scenes, and she was figuring out, what did I want to do? She ultimately decided, I want to do podcasts. So Monty's actually focusing on, she has 2 models. I won't get into it now, but it's something that she, if you did something with her, she could talk to you about. She has 2 models. One basically where she's not going to video you and set it all up. She could come in and say, here's what you need. Let me set it all up for you. But once you video it and you send it to her, she'll handle the post production, the editing, the snippets, the SEO. She'll actually help get people on your podcast. So the hard part of the podcast, she handles. And most people, when I say the SEO and stuff, people think like, oh, I'm posting on Instagram. Is that good? I'm like, no. So a lot of even big podcasts aren't even doing what Monty's doing. That's what she realized. So she's actually taking on big podcasts that you and I might know of. She's probably going to be running in the background because they think they're optimized right, but they're not. So let's just say you don't want to hire somebody like Monty because you're like, I just want to make sure I want to do this. And eventually you start getting, like this is growing and I want to spend the money. If you could do this yourself. Yeah. So VA, for example, we use Sphere Rocket. If you're going to use them, let me know. We can introduce you.
And they're the ones that edit your short form content.
Yeah. So this is what we use, and this is why. There's third-party companies that will do your editing and all this. It's fine. You can pay a little bit, a lot of it, whatever. What we realize.
Put that into numbers a little bit.
Yeah, I'll tell you the numbers.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So what we realized is we were paying these third-party companies to process videos, editing, so all this stuff. Let's say we're paying them $800 a month, $1,000 a month or more. They weren't our full-time editors. So what happened is
doesn't look as sexy, but I think my other camera ran out of battery.
Looks good. Looks good. Your light looks better. So basically, let's just say it costs $800 a month to have a service to do all this chopping up editing. The problem is if you're going to go on Fiverr or Upwork and hire these people where you're like, oh, but I only need this many videos and they charge me $100-$200, you can do that. But what's going to happen is they're going to do a good job. And all of a sudden you're going to be like, hey, I need this. And they start falling behind because they have other clients. They cannot live off 100, 200. So what we realized of doing the VA editing game for many, many years is that they're flaky. They get overwhelmed. They're good at first and they suck. I mean, Monty could tell you she had to deal with them. And we use third-party companies. We use this. We tried it all. And we realized we need full-time people. So for Sphere Rocket, for example, I pay that company $1,000 a month, flat fee. There's some training, there's this and that in there, whatever, right? And then what they do, they go out and I say, hey, I need an editor. I need this, I need that. They'll help you hire a lot of people, like bookkeepers, whatever. So if you're going to start building VAs, like Crystal just hired one to basically take over our bookkeeping. She's training.
That's awesome.
We're hiring it for everybody. So
they're like out of country, and the idea is that they're like out of country, they have lower cost of living and they can do the job for a lot cheaper than if we hired a full-time accountant to be in office with you here.
And also but I feel like gratitude, gratefulness, and just no bullshit. Like, I need this.
They're good people to work. They're good.
They just want to work and make money and feed their families. They're not here to be like, oh my gosh, it's this entitlement, right? And that's what it is. So $1,000 a month for Sphere Rocket, for example. And what we like about it is they go and they'll help you recruit. So we're paying our VAs anywhere from $3 to $5 an hour full time. And so the difference is you can go to Upwork or a Fiverr and get a part-time person. It might work. If you're going to start scaling, you're going to run into problems. Number two, there's third-party companies too. I won't mention names, whatever, but you pay them and they pay the VA. So what happens is you'll end up paying, instead of, $500, $600, $800 a month for a VA, you'll end up paying $2,000. So what Sphere Rocket does is when I hit 1,000 and I add another VA, they go recruit them and I pay them direct. So if they're $3 an hour, I pay direct, I pay $5. So you're paying a platform that knows how to recruit, that has this thing done. And then they recruit and I just pay them. So it's not like every time
they get paid directly from Sphere Rocket based off of the time that they spent on.
No, we pay them directly.
So you pay
Sphere Rocket's like an
$1,000
HR,
a month.
They're like a recruiting HR company. And then you pay them $1,000 a month, but when they hire somebody, they're now becoming our independent contractor. I pay them direct. So for me to have an editor, you're probably looking at, let's say, full-time.
Like to produce, let's call it 30 bits of content a month, like
$600 probably $600. You can get an editor, and then you can add a social media manager for $600. You can keep adding, and they're not going to keep tacking on. So when they add them, they become your independent contractor. You pay them direct. They're not saying, oh, they're $5 an hour, but we're going to charge Alexio $10 because we want to make a spiff off every one of them. We just take this flat fee every month.
Right. So they take the flat fee from you to be like kind of the broker between you and the VAs.
Yep.
And
you can build out your VA team. So if I hire 10 VAs, I'm like and I go to them, I'm only paying the hourly rate. If I go a couple of these other places, I'm paying their hourly rate plus whatever they surcharge. And every time I add somebody, I got to pay the surcharge on everybody. It gets expensive.
So let's just say I hired someone who produced 30 bits of content a month. You're telling me that's around $600.
Yep.
And I've hired a social media manager, $600. That's a total of $1,200. Does the Sphere Rocket take $1,000 on top of that? So you're out of pocket $2,200.
Yep.
For them to connect you with those two VAs, or
yep.
However many. And is there a limit of how many VAs they will produce for that amount? They'll just keep hooking you
unlimited.
Up. That's awesome. Well,
so why I like their model is they're probably one of the best well-run companies, and that we've had some of the best VAs out of them. And we used other companies that didn't have this model. And I found out what I didn't like is if I was paying them $10 an hour, I was finding the VAs were making $4. I'm like, so you're taking $6, and I didn't like it. So I was like, I don't like this model. And so I just didn't think that was fair. So I'd rather pay, I know Sphere Rocket's getting this, and every other, what I pay, this
go
VA,
straight to
getting
them.
all exactly.
And have you had issues with them getting bogged down, like you said, with the last company or the other companies you've worked with? Like, for example, you produce, when we're talking short form content, producing the video where it's doing a little bit of this on the front, on the first frame, and then you throw in the like captions over your audio so that it's engaging, and then it has little emojis and like little things pop up. That's all through Sphere Rocket VA that you found that does your editing.
Correct.
Have you found that you've had to go through a couple of them or a couple editors to handle your workload, or it's the same person you've had for 6 months?
Not at Sphere Rocket, but everywhere else, yes, a lot of editors. And Monty will tell you, they'll be on for a month, and all of a sudden they just fall off, and you're like, dude, I need this, and now you're scrambling.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, I'm got busy with other projects. You're like, and that's when you realize you're sharing this person, and they're stretching themselves as much as possible, and eventually everybody cracked, Monty, and then we ended up just having a problem. That's why we're like, we need our own full-time editors.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, because I've talked to a couple people just about being on that editing side. There's like groups in town who probably go and then like be the broker for the broker, and then take a huge cut off the top. And there are some people in town charging, $2,000 to $3,500 to include the short form editing, 30 bits of content, 2 podcasts, and then also posting on social media. But what you're saying is pretty much about half that, based on the numbers you gave me. So I guess there is a way to do it, cutting out the middleman, if you're willing to take the time to research, go through Sphere Rocket, commit some money.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we did the research and had the pain, so I feel like I already went through
Yeah.
So,
well, I appreciate you sharing that secret, because you may have saved me a lot of pain. And
yeah, I'll send you it
well.
over. I'll send you it over. But yeah, I mean, this is what it is. So, you just need to simplify the things as much as possible, because there's already enough stuff to do in your day. You're closing real estate deals, you got a family, you got a kid now, and then you got to do this. You need somebody you can rely on. So, I mean, we have, just me personally, we have 5 VAs we use now.
Oh, very.
And I will tell you, if you're dealing with a lot of companies, there's a lot of VAs behind people, because you can just cut the costs way down.
Yeah, that's that's awesome. And I think like once you're exposed to that, you're like, whoa, all these, entrepreneurs like us, we're like, wow, what other ways can we create businesses to engage PAs? And, it doesn't seem that hard to make a spread when you're able to like charge $3 an hour or $5 an hour, which goes a long way in those respective countries, but might seem like nothing, peanuts here. So that's really cool. I think that, like you said, you're hiring them for, you got about 10 coming, and we'll see where that goes. Maybe it'll be 100 next year with your more businesses you come up with. And then I guess one of the last questions I have for you is just about the posting. That's like a tough thing in itself. It's like a full-time job. I'm sure Monty
we have
does
a
a lot
VA
of
for
that for you. VA. Nice.
Social media manager. She sets up we set up a posting schedule. Monty says, I need these videos and this and that.
Post it to Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Yep, the whole thing. Yep.
YouTube.
They do the captions. They do
They'll do the captions. They'll do everything for. Do you
Yes.
proofread them? Have you had issues with like spelling or anything like that?
Of course. Yeah, there's things slip, but yeah. I mean, Monty's been proofreading. We'll take over that. But yeah, exactly. Like Crystal does her own captions, but they'll do ours. But yeah, they'll do it all. I mean, literally, like I say, is I kind of sit down, I shoot my stuff, and I might have to upload or whatever, and it's kind of handled. I mean, I've been spoiled with Monty here doing minimal, but now it's not gonna be hard to just it's just really shoot it, upload it, and then if your team knows what to do, it's like hands off.
Have you ever felt, because they're in another place, that you don't really know how much time that they're spending, or are they gouging you in some ways, or you always feel like it's a fair treatment from the VAs that you've never met before that are in another place?
I mean, Monty's had people that were not doing the work. We've let VAs go, but I mean, I don't care if you're here in my office or you're in China or the Philippines or anywhere. It's very easy. If you're getting your job done and what you need to do, nobody's really going to ask questions. It's when you're like, hey, I thought, why not get done? Then you start hearing excuse after excuse, like just production. And you're like, this person's not going to work out. So, right. If they're here or there. So if they're hitting their targets, and then like today we had a call with them and I said, you guys have more capacity. And I had to understand, they said, yes, here, no, there. So we figure out we're not trying to but like, okay, what else can we do? Okay. But I also said, hey, can I make your life easier? Can I shoot a different way? Can I do this? Oh yeah. Don't shoot in 1080 or 4K, and make sure try to use a mic or whatever. So I'm trying to make their life easier. So I'm like, if I can have him produce 8 reels a day for me, other people on my team, and he's like, well, Kenny, because your audio it's 4. I'm like, well, just tell me, I can correct that. I want you to produce as much as you can. If I'm holding you up, let me fix my end. So it's also like what we're producing on our end. Make sure we give them, so they're not like, oh, we're just being quiet and we're just going to take the extra hour to fix it. I'm like, no. And I told him today, if I shoot a webinar and it sucks, because the quality's bad, things can happen. Don't try to fix it. Just call me and say, reshoot it. It sucks, but I don't want you to spend 5 hours to fix it. I'll spend another hour to shoot it, or 30 minutes. So just having that open dialogue.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's trial and error too, and you're still learning what works and what doesn't work. And I think that like those bits and secrets and insights into the process are huge. No one knows that. I'm pretty, I think, well versed with video and photo, and I didn't know this stuff. I think it's not something that's shared that often. So appreciate.
I always show people your crazy drone video. I love that one. First time you show me, you're like, you shoot an amazing drone video. So
but
I'll tell you this. What I would tell people too is we meet with a lot of realtors, right, that want to get into posting, and because I mean, when I show them all the stuff we're doing, I mean, there's even more. It goes deeper. Like I have a lot of stuff. It took a while. I said, look, let's just take a step back and let's forget a podcast and everything. If you're doing nothing, if you're listening to this and you're like, I have a business, I'm doing 0, here's 3 things you should focus on. Number 1 is get comfortable on video. Number 2, just pick one platform. If you're doing Instagram, you shoot the reels. The good thing is it can go on Facebook and you can use those reels for YouTube and everything else. But just pick one platform and just learn it and own it. And then the third thing is if you have a client database, email them blogs.
And you put all your videos linked in your email so that they're repurposed there as well. And
like if we're shooting the podcast, absolutely. And on your signature or whatever, but email. And it's like, and I tell people, not salesy bullshit, educational is new sales. So just email, video, and then just start there. And just once you start getting there and you master that, then you can grow from there. I know a lot of people are like, I'm going to do this and that and this, and they get super spread thin, nothing ever, and they give up because it's too much. We grew into this spot, and we're trying to do more and more and more. And that's why Monty said, I'm going to go out in this direction, because she's like, I can focus her business. I want to focus more on podcasting and get in. And we were spreading ourselves thin. And she's like, our podcast could have been bigger if I just focus on that instead of help us out. So for us, we just hired another couple of VAs. We figure out what we're going to do. And the next thing I would do is probably, if I'm going to hire somebody where I'm at, is, okay, can I find somebody that worked, literally no joke, under Mr. Beast or something like that has been around a big YouTuber that took him from X to this? Those are the people that can come in and go, okay, Kenny, you got some good stuff here and there, but this is why, and they can help you go from here to here because they took somebody there, and that's the next hire, something like that. But, I was listening to a guy that worked for Mr. Beast, and he said, don't even bother calling somebody like me or hiring somebody until you've tried to produce and put out there and give you your best 100 YouTube videos. Once you hit 100, After that, then you should go and talk to somebody about getting serious about it, because 100, what it will teach you, just like podcasts, the lighting sucked, the audio sucked, this, the hook sucked, this. But during 100 of them, you and I know, like, so you do 100 YouTube videos and you try, you're going to learn a lot.
It gets you through kindergarten so that you can then attend the elementary school of Mr. Beast.
Yeah. And then, but when you go and write that guy a check and you pay him a lot of money, he's like, you want to pay me a lot of money to teach you to, no, you want to pay me a lot of money.
Install some lights. Yeah.
And you're like,
it has to be on the high level.
Because you're going to ask different questions. Like,
exactly.
If you shoot 100 episode of podcast and we shot another podcast about this, you'd be asking me different questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just like buying real estate or anything else, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that I'm going to have you on the podcast very soon to talk about real estate. You've helped me with a couple loans, and we always shoot the shit on what's happening with the market. And I appreciate your time every time here. So the last thing is just like, what is the biggest benefit you've seen from the content that you've created? Like, do you see a crazy ROI compared to other outreach things that you've done? Have you just seen an exponential growth the first year? Did it take a couple of years? What's the biggest benefit from producing content for you?
Yeah, great question. So when we first launched the podcast, we all talked about it, and I told Monty and Crystal, I said, okay, let's give it a year and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going along 6 months. It was like, man, it just felt like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 months hit, and all of a sudden people started reaching out. Hey, like your podcast. Hey, I didn't know you guys did all this in real estate. And so it started picking up. And then we were just actually meeting with Monty today. It's kind of funny you asked me the question. And our podcast, and she just like kind of laughed because she knows our podcast, because she's gotten better at a producer and knowing what to do, just like everything else. Like, right.
Yeah,
she got better. We got better guests. We got better at interviewing. Like, I interview good guests, and they're like, you're good at interviewing. I'm like, well, I hope after 200 episodes, I've gotten better. And I also listen to other people that are really good podcasters, and I learn from them. I'm trying to I'm like, oh, what do they ask questions? How do they start? And then when it becomes very natural, it becomes easy. So the last year and a half, our growth has really gone up, and now she really wants to explode us. So absolutely, growth has been huge. But Crystal likes me to use this analysis. So, in 2021, I did about $100 million of loans. I could have done a lot more if I was set up in my business better. But last year, rates went up. So you'd have thought like a lot of businesses went down 50, 60%. I did about $100 million of loans last year.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
When a lot of people's business was down 50, 60. And I didn't even pay attention because I just keep going. And Crystal was like, wow, all the content, this. So to answer your question is, the weekly emails, the post, the content, the PR, all this stuff, when you add it all up, and I get in front of, I go meet people that are big mentors to me, then in the real estate space, and they're like, dude, I love your content. I'm like, haha. They're like, no, because they're like, I'm learning, because I like to educate. I like to listen.
You're sharing your knowledge and what you've digested from the news and your resources every single day. And it's really cool because it's insights that no one ever hears or has time to go read and find, but you're in it and you're sharing what you know. And this is, superpower.
So that's been one thing. How much spent? The other thing is I'll get a referral from Alexio. You go, hey, Kenny, I got a client want to buy. A lot of times you might go, oh, by the way, you should go check Kenny on a line or whatever. I don't know. You say this. Yeah. And I get on the phone. Hey, John. Oh, cool. Oh, by the way, I watched 2 of your podcasts. Well, Alexio forwarded me a brief and I saw this and that. I was like, oh, they're like, so you're the man. I go, I guess. Like, cool. And so I just, all the content that I just did, just sold. They got to know me. I don't have to sell myself. I'm like, do you have any questions about me? They're like, no, it's like all there. I'm like,
I already know you. Yeah. I don't even have to meet you.
So that was another thing. That was another win for the whole, scenario. And then the other thing is what I've gotten better about. And if I have more time is when I talk to a client, I'm like, oh, there's that topic. I make a piece of content about it. So when you do a loan with me, as you go through the process, I mean, you probably know you get dripped on of market updates, but I'm trying to get better. And then, I got an email from a realtor the other day. I was like, wow, that was a great intro. And this is like, I'll just share this with you. It's great. He was like, oh, hey, Kenny, here's a client. And then I noticed that he's like, introduced me. He's like, oh, by the way, to this client, he goes, oh, and this guy's breaking down about his business. And he goes, oh, check out my webinar and this and that. And so when he emails a client, says, oh, nice to meet you. I specialize in 2 to 4. he's saying, this is my stats. Here's a couple webinars. And I was like, that's genius. Like, you're sending a client the first time, like, here's about me. Here's the thing about this. Oh, if you're VA, this, and create
Yeah,
content.
like we don't even have to meet and make you feel uncomfortable. You can just find out about me at your leisure. And I won't even know if you do it or not, but it's just a very non-invasive way to approach people who sometimes feel pressured when you're trying to set up a meeting or something like that. But like you said, people feel like they've met you. They've already spent an hour talking to you, or you talking to them, and you don't even know. And so it's allowed you to scale. And that's really cool. And I think that's probably one of the biggest benefits of this, besides just feeling good about sharing information with people and providing that for free, is that you get it back tenfold in terms of people feeling appreciative and wanting to work with you based off of what you shared.
No,
so that's really cool.
It's like big. Like, another thing I'll tell you, we're learning every day is like when you're going to go have people give you reviews, you should do them on Google.
Mhm.
And so we don't have that many reviews on Google. So one of the things, I'm trying to get to 100 reviews on Google, just go back to past clients, because I'm talking to this marketing guy that we're working on some stuff with. And he says, Kenny, I took a client from like 10 reviews on Google to 100, but just because of the organic search and the SEO they built out, and we've worked on that too. That's a whole nother topic. That's why I said there's so many things. He's like, that guy's a loan officer in Texas. He goes, he went from, zero. In this market today, he's getting 4 or 5 organic referrals just because he has 100. They go, well, you have 100, Alexia or Kenny, just use him. He has to be good. You can't fake 100 reviews. Yeah. And so I'm like, shit, get it up. And he goes, when it was really booming the rates, he's getting 10 referrals, 15 referrals a month organically. Wow. So all these things, like, we go back to is being around the people that know what the hell they're doing, whether it's social, email, Google, SEO, whatever.
Yeah, that's not our business. You're a loan officer. I'm a real estate agent. We can't go tackle another industry. That's an entire industry. So you want to hire the experts. I mean, your dollar goal, your time is way more valuable doing what you know first, and outsourcing what you don't know. And especially when you can find VAs at the cost you're talking about, there's no reason not to work with them. So I definitely have to do some homework and chat with
Invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Like, that you're buying real estate, you're investing back that, but also, I spent a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be in the right rooms and invest. And honestly, I have great relationships. I mean, I can text great people. Monty, like, got the benefit of like me. I'm like to start it. And then she's like, this is great. And we all realize the benefit. So she's doing it and we're all networking and feeding the machine. But the people we can text now and call to get stuff, it's like, people can't even track them down, or they're going to make, you can get them on a phone. I'm like, yeah, they're going to have to pay them $10,000 for a conversation. Yeah. It's best back because it'll forward. And so many people, like, you'll go buy the car and all this shit, but it's like, just go invest back in yourself to learn this, and you can 10x your business or whatever,
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I mean, you provided so much cool information today. I'm sure we're going to have you on the podcast again soon. I don't have a podcast name yet, but I will be coming up with that. You'll probably see it at the top if you're watching.
Exciting.
Once it comes to posting, but where can our guests find you, Kenny, and how can they get in touch with you if they have more questions about this or want to do a loan here in San Diego?
Yeah, so I'm at Kenny B Simpson, like an Instagram, and then it's simpson-team.com. Is that what it is, Monty? Sorry, my website. I should know that. Simpson-team.com. My website's there. You can find all the stuff there. And if you want to find out about Crystal and I, like, overall, is getting the cash flow game with K&K. That's where our thing. We have a lot of stuff on there. And that's another thing, is like focusing on your website and building that out. It's a whole nother thing. Like, yeah, we really put a lot of time in all this stuff. It's just time, but start small or grow out as you go. Don't try to overwhelm yourself. And it might, just like this, you buy an apartment building, a 30 unit, and you buy it year one, and maybe it's really stabilized in 2 years, right? It takes time to kick people out, turn the units, do this, right? This is what it is. If you start today and you start posting and learning, in 2 years, if you stay at it, where you will be just from this, what we talked about here, how much you could do. Just imagine if you went from nothing to something. And then, very simple to leave your guest. If people, I assume, we all assume that everybody knows what we do, but they don't. If you just went on Instagram and said, my name is Kenny, and I know you guys follow me, but maybe for some of you didn't know this, I do loans for a living, and that means this. And you'll be surprised how many people are like, You do loans? I didn't know
That's
that.
what you
Like,
do.
what,
Yeah.
what did you think I did? They're
So
like,
do you remind
"Oh,
them with that every month or so, or a couple of weeks? You just bring
well,
up.
I think by now I probably beat in people's brains, enough. But what I'm saying is when Crystal and I realized we sold our management company, people go, "You guys do loans?" We're like, "What are you talking about? We've been doing this whole time." And nobody knew. We started sending out emails. All of a sudden, we got this referral. People, I didn't know you do loans. You're like, how do you know? Like, we just thought you were real estate investors did management. We're like, no, and we assumed, but don't assume.
Right.
Whatever you do, tell people, email, social, video, what you do, and remind them. You'll watch. You'll get a deal out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's probably easy thing to forget when you're producing content and just focused on it, but it's a really important thing if you actually wanted to convert to business. Well, hey, Kenny, Monty, thank you guys for the insights and for making Kenny look good in the lighting. And apparently I got to do some things different over here. I got to move these lights around, but it's been awesome having you on my first podcast, and
Excited for you.
always a pleasure chatting with you, and look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Talk to you guys. Have a good day.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.